Alright Alpha fam, let's do a quick market update. Before we begin, I do want to say that nothing in this video is financial advice. Everything is for educational purposes only. This is just my own analysis on the market. And if you're new to this channel, if you can please like, comment, and subscribe, we really do appreciate all of the help. Now guys, let's get into this market. So, we had a pretty decent move last night on Bitcoin. We're going to go over a few different things that I saw. So, one of the things that I saw yesterday was not only did Bitcoin make this move up, it got to about 88,000 and then it started coming back down a little bit. I had a feeling that would happen where the cooldown would come in and close this CME gap. So Bitcoin had a very small CME gap. It opened up last night. You can see it right here. And I expected that spot to get hit and close up, and it did. They usually do, especially when they're so close together. So I was telling a lot of guys in the community, a lot of guys were like, yeah, I want to see this weekend pump. I want to see Bitcoin make this move. And I was like, I don't. They were like, well, what do you mean? I was like, what do you mean? There's going to be a futures gap there. There's going to be a massive CME gap. And now there's an excuse to tear us back down. I would prefer to make a base out, and then once CME opens, a quick wick down, close that thing up and get a continuation, and that's our retest of the previous resistance zone, which is essentially what you have seen right here, guys. So when you come over here and look at Bitcoin, you can see what it's essentially done is, if you come over here in the 4 hour, you can see this zone right here was acting like resistance, and it's come back in and found support. And crypto is one of those things that really respects support and resistance zones, and it's just something you can kind of play off of. With that being said, I also want to take a look at Bitcoin dominance. We're still getting this move down. I'm expecting probably at some point for us to get a wick up to retest this 50, and then I would like to see some additional relief. Alts are performing better than Bitcoin. They are. You can see it in the charts. I mean, Bitcoin even today, because it's had this little bit of a pull down, we're waiting for the US market to open up in about 8 minutes. You can still see that alts are still performing better than Bitcoin. I mean, just generally speaking, they have held a lot more of their value. And I think the reason why is because, one, they were already beat down. Two, all the liquidity and all the leverage had already been wiped out of them, especially on some of the coins where they had those spam wicks to the downside on the 10th. So with that being said, alts have actually held up relatively well. Now, one thing that we have to watch, and what we are watching, is the traditional market, because I think we're going to continue to move up as long as the NASDAQ and the S&P want to continue to move up. So what I'm seeing is I want to see this thing reclaim this 50 immediately, because the chances are if we come up there and reject off of this, then there's another chance for another leg further. And there's a couple of zones. So like you have this zone right here, and then you have, and if that one didn't hold, you would be looking at this zone down here. And I really don't want to see any one of those zones hit. I don't want us to go nowhere near there, but we have to be logical. If we reject, where do we think we're coming down to? Because right now you're having to play the market where everybody's looking for some type of confirmation. Everybody wants to get a confirmation. Is the market over? Is it not over? Are we going into a bear market? What's going on? And I'm in the camp that I think rushing to make a decision like this is actually not a very smart thing to do, because essentially I feel like people are trying to put this carbon copy on the last cycle onto this one. And I just feel like there's just too many fundamental differences from last cycle to this cycle, where using that is like comparing apples and oranges. And then not only with this, guys, we have to understand all the different things that we have coming up next year. And I'm going to make a video that really breaks down macro. We're going to have a macro section inside of this channel where I break down like all the different macro events and the different things that affect these markets, as far as in the Fed, what Trump's doing, different countries, because you have to understand, and this is the way that I've always approached this market. The only way you can get a real edge on this market is you have to study three things. The first is macroeconomics, all right? The second is technical analysis, and the third is fundamentals. And then you combine these three things together in order to give you the best unbiased opinion on this market, because what I see happen with a lot of people is they lean too far on one or the other. I'm telling you from experience that I've been in this market and I've watched technical analysis defy and go right out the window with crypto. I mean, like literally places that should have bounced, places it should have rejected. I've seen market structure break and it still recover. I've seen some crazy things with crypto because of the what it is, being such a new emerging market, such a low market cap compared to rest of the traditional markets. I mean, just comparing, it's $55 trillion in the S&P 500. Crypto's like a little under 3 trillion right now with the pullback, guys. I mean, it shows you how small it is. Less than 4% of the population's using it. So with that being said, I'm hoping we get a continuation through the rest of the week. I'm watching a couple of zones very, very close. Obviously, the first zone I want to watch get reclaimed, which is a psychological zone, is going to be this $90,000 zone. I have a feeling Bitcoin will reclaim this zone, but this is a zone I want to see reclaimed, and I want to see the 50-day EMA reclaimed as well. The next zone that I'll be looking at after that is going to be this one. I think if Bitcoin is going to struggle the most, it's going to be between this zone, and I think if it's not going to bounce out of this and it's not going to continue going up, this will probably be most likely the rejection zone, where it'll reject and then start, making its descend down to the next level, which if this was the case, obviously I think everybody can agree the next level is probably going to be somewhere down in here. I think it'll be in between this prior resistance zone that was last year's. This would be the next logical place if it was to lose this support. And now, I'm not going to say that there isn't a chance when it comes down here, it couldn't try to attempt to bounce out again. But for the most part, guys, if Bitcoin can't continue to reclaim some levels, what I'm scared about right now, and I'm just being honest with you guys, is I don't want to see Bitcoin starting to reclaim some levels, but then also being and making a head and shoulders pattern. Because that's the thing about head and shoulders patterns is you have to be able to identify these things before they play themselves out, so that way you can position before. So if you see a head and shoulders pattern with potential of playing out and it's going to be bearish, then what you want to do is you want to target the top of that range, get out, and then once the smoke settles, then re-enter. I look at crypto as something that I always want exposure to, but I also need to know when to de-risk and go more risk on. So this is one of those situations where taking the opportunity to de-risk if we do start getting some weakness is probably going to be a very smart thing for a lot of people, because don't think your bags, even if they're down 60, 70, 80%, don't think they can't go down another 60, 70%, because they most certainly can. All right. I'm very selective about the projects and the things that I hold in my portfolio. And we'll be breaking this down on this channel, the different projects and the different narratives that I'm extremely bullish on. Crypto's fundamentally solving problems, guys, that the banking industry hasn't been able to solve ever. It's a technology. It's a new technology. It's being adopted very fast. But in these new emerging markets, you're going to have to deal with a lot of chop. I've showed this same chart to the guys in my community several times. This is the Apple chart. I don't think anybody in the world doesn't wish they could go back in the early 80s when Apple first launched and go back and buy that stock. I think it's pretty unanimous. Everybody wishes they could do that. During those periods of time when you owned Apple stock back in the early 80s, it was one of the most volatile stocks that you'd ever seen. This thing would do a 5x, and then it would go ahead and do a 79% correction. Then it would do a 10x, and then it would do another 80 some odd percent correction. Guys, the reason I'm saying this is it just shows you that every generation gets something like this. Our parents got tech stocks, they got the internet bubble. We get crypto, we get AI. Nothing is new under the sun. History repeats, guys, over and over and over again. And you don't want to look back at this in 10 years and say a little bit of negative price action made you lose your conviction to the point where you left this market, and you come back and look 10 years ago and you see the prices of these assets. Crypto's not going anywhere. It's only going to evolve. All right. And I'm going to break down my full thesis for my long-term viewpoint of where I think this market is going to go and what I think where crypto's future is going to go. All right, guys. So with that being said, watching these markets open real close today, really hoping for some bullish momentum today. Don't want to see us pull down. See, we're looking, look, this is the US Open. Of course, I don't trust the first 30 minutes I've seen it fake out several times where you'll see it jump up, then go down. So I'll usually try to give it an hour. But one thing that was reassuring was on Friday was the first day that we did not have large institutional dumping. It was the first day it stopped. That's why we started moving up. So if the dumping has stopped, what do you think is going to happen now, guys? All right. So again, nothing in this video I say is ever financial advice. Again, this video is for educational purposes only. I also want to let you guys know that I am the founder and the CEO of Alpha Syndicate. This is a community that I created when I started hosting and doing VCs for Capital Club because of the overwhelming amount of demand I was getting for people that were lost in these markets. And I know this is a very difficult market to navigate between all the lies, all the FUD, all the KOLs that you just feel like they're just pumping and dumping on you, all these low cap meme coins that have just rugged you, and you're just tired of always feeling like you're 2 steps behind the rest of this market. Well, we have a solution. It's called Alpha Syndicate, guys. Click the link below. Send us a DM. We can hop on a call. I think you'd be surprised at the different things that we're doing inside of this community.